evening. I have 7 o'clock here. We will invite you to stand and join us in the Pledge of Allegiance, please. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, thank you for joining us tonight. Looks like we have some students in the house tonight. Great. Very nice to have you. We will move to the superintendent's report. Dr. Hinson.
Thank you. I have several things for you this evening. First of all, you may be aware, but a team of students at Crestview Elementary School named one of the 20 finalists for the Burns and McDonald Battle of the Brains contest. Now, there were about 500 entries. And so Crestview and their students are in the top 20, so certainly congratulations to them. And I think there's some online voting in this regard as well. So make sure you take advantage of that opportunity, please. Also, the Confidence in Kansas Public Education Task Force has nominated the 2013 and are recognizing the 2013 Challenge Award winners. And so these awards are given to Kansas schools that are making a significant difference in student achievement despite challenges. And so our schools that will be honored in 2 days are Crestview, Comanche, Shawnee, Santa Fe Trail, Rising Star, Marion Park, Rose Hill, and Hawker Grove. And so congratulations certainly to these award winners. Several of you attended with me today various Veteran Day assemblies. So we had many great assemblies today. As you know, we had a special guest today in relation to a visitor from the United States Army. And so a lot of ceremonies today. I hate to call out one school that we attended, but a lot of great ceremonies in the district today, certainly honoring the veterans that have served our country and continue to serve them so very well. We are, as a cabinet, looking at the Innovative Schools Grant. This is legislation that passed this last session, and we are looking at bringing that grant back to you at the next board meeting. So we haven't finalized that yet, but we're looking at what it would really bring for the Shawnee Mission School District. So that's in the works, and potentially it will come to you at the next school board meeting. So if you have questions about that, certainly we would be happy to entertain those questions, and we'll keep you informed as we go through the process. You know, we've had far too much of this situation. As you know, we lost another student this last week, and so another student at West High School. Houston St. John was a fabulous student here in the school district, and he died in a horrible car accident. So the services for Houston were this last week and weekend, but what a great family. Certainly a great student as well, and a great tribute to our communities in the school district. So certainly our heartfelt condolences go out to the family of Houston St. John tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions for the superintendent? Okay, very good. We'll move on to open forum. Mrs. Wintering, do we have any speakers in open forum? Thank you. Okay, move on to approval of minutes, the regular meeting of October 28th.
So move.
Thank you. Second. I think that was Mrs. Goodburn here. Is there any discussion?
It wasn't me.
Oh, was it you?
No.
It was done.
Well, I thought I had stereo going on.
One of the
Okay,
two.
we'll change it to Mrs. Bisfield, please. Hearing things here tonight. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. The special meeting for November 4th.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn.
Second.
Thank you, Dr. Denny. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Move on to the adoption of the agenda.
Move adoption.
Second. Thank you, Mrs. Levens and Dr. Denny. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Move on to routine business by consent. Is there any item that any board member would like removed from the consent agenda? Is there-
Move approval of routine business by consent.
Thank you.
Second.
Dr. Denny and Mrs. Goodburn. Is there any discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. That moves us down to Letter L, Educational Services. Dr. Hinson.
We have one item under Educational Services for you tonight. It is time to approve the middle school program of studies. As you know, we've already approved the high school program of studies. So Dr. Strike, if you would present to us tonight, please, the middle school program of studies.
Thank you. Come on up, Kim. Madam President, members of the Board of Education, thank you for entertaining our opportunity to share with you the program of studies for middle school. Hopefully you found that the strikeouts were a little more effective in terms of communicating changes in content for you.
Thank you.
And to try to provide an overview for you, we will be happy to try to entertain any questions that you might have based on the subheadings. But before we get to that stage, I do want to acknowledge a couple of errors that we've already identified. If you'll look at content changes under Introduction to World Languages, it's the third from the bottom under the content changes. Introduction to World Languages, there's a page 15. That language that talks about removing Spanish and French focus needs to be translated to page 3 as well. We didn't catch that when we went through the review. So the language would basically be mirrored on page 3 as well, which talks about the Introduction to World Languages as a semester course that allows students to learn an overview of world languages, period. The reason we're removing the Spanish and French is because not all of our teachers that we have currently in place in those positions are fluent in languages other those languages. So that's the primary focus. And the other is on Spanish 1, which is the next to the last item under content change. We got a little bit light on our removal of an A. We should have had a underscore, a mark through strikeout on A, and we didn't catch that. So those are the two items we've caught. So if you have anything else you'd like to ask questions about, we'd be happy to entertain those questions at this point.
Does anyone have any questions about the middle school program of studies? They were pretty just kind of language
Right.
change and brush up there. Okay.
I am fine. Do you want a motion?
Sure.
I would move approval of the middle school program of studies.
Thank you.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Levens. Is there any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Great
Thank
job.
you.
Thank you
Thank you.
both very much. Move on to the proclamation for American Education Week. Dr. Denny.
I would move the following. Proclamation for American Education Week. Whereas public schools are the backbone of our democracy, providing young people with the tools they need to maintain our nation's precious values of freedom, civility, and equality. And whereas by equipping young Americans with both practical skills and broader intellectual abilities, schools give them hope for and access to a productive future. And whereas education employees, be they custodians or teachers, bus drivers or librarians, work tirelessly to serve our children and communities with care and professionalism. And whereas schools are community linchpins bringing together adults and children, educators and volunteers, business leaders and elected officials in a common enterprise. And whereas the Shawnee Mission School District is committed to providing every child with a quality education, now therefore the Board of Education of Shawnee Mission School District does hereby proclaim November 18 to 22, 2013 as the 92nd annual observance of American Education Week, and urge all parents, teachers, administration, and students to join us in honoring the institution of education in Shawnee Mission and in America.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Bisfield. Is there any discussion on this proclamation? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. And if there are teachers in our audience, we thank you very much and wish you a wonderful National Education Week. Moving on to Human Resources, Appeal of Liquidated Damages. Dr. Hinson.
We have one individual tonight because of a situation in her family that needs to tender her resignation, and I am recommending the approval of her resignation without imposition of the $1,000 resignation penalty.
Okay.
So moved.
Thank you, Mrs. Levens.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. Is there any discussion? Okay, seeing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Very good. We'll move down to action P. Dr. Hinson.
This is an item that we have discussed previously. It's a revision to our Board of Education policy in relation to board meetings. What it does is takes us from 2 board meetings a month to 1. It goes from the second and fourth Monday to the fourth Monday. However, it does provide a 5:30 work session prior to each board meeting. So 5:30 to 7 would be a work session. We will live stream these meetings as well. This is in relation to discussion, clarification, presentations, no action items during the work session. Those will only take place during the board meeting. For example, we are already working on the first work session. We have a lot of information we'd like to bring to you in relation to signature programs. As you know, we've had a lot of discussion about what we are currently doing, about what other districts are doing, and so we're going to bring you just factual information about our enrollment in our signature programs, some what-ifs, and so these work sessions are opportunities for the administration to present information to you, for you to ask questions, be involved in that process as well, and so we will have an annual schedule, subject to change depending on things that arise, information that will be taken to you for discussion, for input, for guidance. Again, these are non-action items, but that'll be from 5:30 to 7, then the board meeting at 7.
Very good.
Is there any questions that you have for Dr. Hinson regarding this? And that was a work session prior to each regular board meeting, each scheduled board meeting.
Correct.
And I would just note, too, that the board is free to call special meetings at any time. Should something arise, we could have a special meeting with some notice to it, so that if we need another meeting in a month, we can certainly do that.
I would move approval of the revised board policy BE school board meetings.
Thank you,
Second.
Dr. Denny. Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. Is there any further discussion?
I have just a couple of questions.
Sure.
One being, do we need to republish, since we, originally, when we vote in July, it gets published in the newspaper that we use, and so I don't know now that we've changed them mid-year.
The meeting schedule, you mean?
The meeting schedule,
Mhm.
if we need to republish.
We will change our postings in relation to the meeting schedule, so it's revised and everybody knows.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we don't need to go back through the publishing that we have to do when we do the organizational
ma'am.
meeting? Okay, that was, and I'm assuming this starts in January?
Yes, that would be our start date
Correct.
for that. So we would continue the second meeting in November, this month. We only have one meeting in
Right.
December, so that in January it will be the fourth Monday, the work session and then the regular board meeting. Any other discussion? Okay. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. And the legislative platform, Dr. Hinson.
The legislative platform that you have before you, as you know, we have met with our elected officials on a couple of different occasions. Certainly, we have specifically met with them in regard to our legislative platform. So we've tried to be inclusive in the process. What you have before you tonight is a draft of the feedback we've received to this point. I'm assuming you're going to have some input tonight and some things that you would like to have altered or changed, or certainly some questions. And so our goal tonight is to have official approval of the Shawnee Mission School District legislative platform for 2014. Now, saying that, we are still watching with great anticipation to see what's going to come forth in relation to this upcoming legislative session. As you know, we may have a Gannon case decision prior to the legislative session. We don't know. If we have a decision from the Kansas Supreme Court in relation to the Gannon case prior to the legislative session, that could alter things significantly during the legislative session. So there are a number of things that are simply unknown. And I know you've been a part of those discussions and also trying to anticipate what might happen in the legislature. And so based on what we know now, this is a draft legislative platform, certainly for your adoption amendment tonight.
Okay. Do we want to just move into possible?
Well, let me, since I've made a few adjustments. Let me at least observe that what we have on paper in front of us with the red strike-throughs do not represent the entirety of the changes, because they're, the way that I understand a PDF works, wherever you see a little yellow highlight in here is an insertion, and so we don't really have that to look at.
Okay, would you
So,
like to give us the verbiage that you would like to see
well,
in that, or?
Let me first start out by saying I didn't really have any objection to the original as published, but I had some thoughts as to perhaps shortening the language a little bit, and in some cases, you know, we would say we oppose legislation, and in fact, I think we just oppose the concept of some things, so I don't know that was, so I'm not unhappy with the way it was published at all. I simply moved a few things around for consideration, and that's, I think, what I sent to the board, so
Okay,
I have no strong feelings. I do think we need to say that we're doing the, you know, doing this because it's the right thing to do for children.
absolutely. Okay. Do we want to start with the standing legislative positions, maybe, since that's the first thing we come to there?
Yeah, let me find what I sent in, and
Okay.
maybe I can find it.
We just have the red strikes and the
Yeah,
yellow dots, so
so-
we're a bit of a disadvantage.
Bear with me.
Sure.
So, sent.
If he's still trying to look, may I make a suggestion on the front?
You may.
In the very first one, I'm not sure that we need to do that at the very first sentence, that it's beneficial to children and youth that aren't children. Doesn't that cover it?
Anyone have an opinion on that? Children and youth is needed?
Oops, where'd it
It
go?
might be redundant. Youth may be more teenagers or something like that is what they were thinking, the young and old children, but
Well, we could
children
say-
would probably
we
cover
could
the
also
gamut for
say
K-12.
Students
No.
instead of children. If we
Children.
wanted to cover better ages, why don't we say students?
Beneficial for students, okay?
I'm sorry.
On the first
On the very
paragraph, front
first.
page, Mrs. Visfield is recommending that we change the last part of that sentence, that is beneficial to, it says children and youth, we could just be
Students
all-inclusive
would
with
cover.
students.
Yes. Yep.
Anyone object to that one? Okay. Was there anything else, Mrs.
I
Visfield?
don't think so.
Okay. Dr. Denny, do you have your changes?
Well, sadly, I didn't, apparently the balloons that would show up in here didn't come through either on my copy. But let me,
We can work through the thought process, maybe.
well, if we start with standing legislative positions, I think my thought was support school board elections in the spring consistent with our fiscal year.
Does anyone have any comments for that? I have one, and it seems to me on the standing positions, because more than just legislators receive this, it seems like some of what has been struck here is kind of the rationale as to why we, I mean, consistent with our fiscal year would be part of that rationale. But I think we want to maintain a nonpartisan focus as well.
Yeah, and I think that was probably an insert in here too. It probably said support nonpartisan school board elections in the spring or something like that.
Consistent with our fiscal year
Yeah,
or something like that. Do you want to state a actual phrase for us there, or?
As I said earlier, I'm fine with the, with the way that everything is in our, you know, the original proposed
The original
platform.
proposed.
I-
Maintaining tells us that, yes, they've always been in the spring.
Yeah,
So that kind
that's
of
true.
leads us to the spring elections. We could add consistent with our fiscal year, with that, if that's, because
In-
that's
in the
why it's
event-
important
In
to
the event that
us.
some people don't know it, that might be helpful.
So are you saying then leave it as is and add consistent with
That
our
would be
fiscal
fine.
year?
That would
Does
be
anyone have
just
any
fine.
comments on that?
I think that works.
Okay. The second one, about tuition credits or vouchers.
Yeah, I think that's fine as it was
As
originally,
written?
too. Yeah.
Anyone else have comments on that? Very good. Did you want to also move school board elections to the bottom of that list?
I thought of that. I'm not sure it's the most important standing position we need to present, but that's simply an order. of
Does
things.
everyone agree with moving that school board standing position to the bottom of that and letting the others stand first?
Yes.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
Mhm.
nods,
Mhm.
okay. We shall move that down to number 4 then. Was there anything else on the standing positions?
No.
Okay, move over to the key legislative positions.
Again, this was more wordsmithing, so I'm fine with the way the first bullet is,
As written.
as written.
Without the
Okay.
list, yeah, as written.
Anyone
Some-
else on the first position there?
No.
Okay, move on to the second one, support greater opportunities to raise funds at the local level.
Yeah, that's
That's good?
unchanged.
Okay. Third position, support a new or reformed school finance formula that is financially sustainable and promotes, as it reads, greater local funding flexibility to ensure educational excellence that prepares students for college and careers and meets community expectations. Any changes to that one?
I don't know that I would change it, but somewhere in here, I thought I added something that would say that we support the legislature or the formula recognizing kindergartners as one FTE, so that the state will pay for
You,
full-day kindergarten.
you have we have it over on the.
Current funding levels do not allow for.
allow.
Yeah, it does not allow, but, I mean,
I just wondered if that's what you
Yeah.
were thinking of.
no, I really wanted to put it somewhere where it was really a position. We want the state, we want somebody, state board legislature to say, yeah, kindergarten ought to be full-time.
Well, if we left the third one as it is, which also is asking for greater local funding flexibility, we could put the second one instead of, again, local level, we could put the
Mhm.
all-day kindergarten.
I'd suggest an added bullet point.
And leave the two,
Leave those.
both that mention local authority?
Mhm.
So add that bullet point taken from the current
Support.
funding levels do not allow for, and bring it up to a point of key legislative positions.
Mhm.
The kindergarten would be considered
Support.
full-day, all-day kindergarten.
Right. Yeah. Support district-paid all-day kindergarten.
Okay? Any other comments on that one for all-day kindergarten? Added to the key legislative positions and probably struck from, I would say, what current levels do not allow. Okay? Anything else on that third bullet point that's shown here?
No.
Okay? The next one I saw no corrections on. Does anyone have any comments on that one?
Mhm.
And finally, the fourth bullet point reads, oppose mandatory retention at the primary grade levels based on reading performance level. I think this may be something that does come up in the legislature this year, so I think
Yeah.
it might be important to know how we stand.
And I don't
on that
remember
one.
what I was thinking at the time. There was something else that was probably a focus of that. but
Mhm.
Again, I'm fine with the way it was originally written.
Okay. Anyone else have comments on that last bullet point? Okay. Do we need to vote to approve this then with the changes made?
I would move approval of the legislative platform, which is for the 2014 legislative platform with the changes that we have just made.
Second.
Thank you, Mrs. Goodburn. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, no. Motion carries 5-0. Thank you very much. Got through that one. That puts us down to comments from board members. So I would open the floor for board comments. Or a quiet bunch. Nothing? Well, I would just echo the superintendent. It was a great Veterans Day, and it was, I think it's always great to have our kids who don't really understand maybe what veterans are all about, to hear from them and get a perspective from them and know that their freedoms have been fought for by many of our family members. So anyway, thank you all for coming tonight. It was a short meeting. You chose the right one to come to. Have a good evening. The meeting is adjourned.